Hello and welcome. I'm Jenny Florence from the A to Z of Emotional Health online library. In this video, I'm going to teach you a tool that I use, not only for myself, but for the people that I work with. It's a tool that helps to firm up boundaries in your relationships, and it helps you to develop discernment. That wonderful word, discernment. Now, discernment is something that I have had to personally work very hard at in my life. I went through a phase in my world where I welcomed all sorts of, I'm going to say, inappropriate people into my life. I really welcomed everybody into my life, regardless of whether they were able to really be in a relationship that would be compatible with my own values. I then spent ages trying to squeeze some of those people back out again, because they were in my life, I'd welcomed them in, and yet really those friendships were not healthy. You know, sometimes we really do develop some quite what I would call toxic ties, and we often do so inadvertently. So this tool is what I call a grading tool. Now, if I was to imagine a line between me and the wall in front of me, and I was to put every single person in my world on that line, some of those people on the line are there by default. They're not there by my choice, they are there by default. So, for example, our family members are on our line by default. They're in our lives because they're our family, unless we've really had to draw the line and close the door. Those people are on our line by default, not choice. Our friends are on that line. They're on our line by choice. Our neighbours will be on our line by default. They may be friends, they may not, but they are connected to you by default because you live in the vicinity of them. Everyone we meet is somewhere on that line. As I said, some of them by default, some by choice. If you were to draw that line on a piece of paper, it is really, really helpful to then think about where people are on that line and where are you placing them in terms of your openness and availability to them. Firstly, think of that line, or indeed, as I said, you could draw it. Everyone on your line who is there by choice, I would like you to consider how close to you they are and how close you have placed them. I would also like you then to think about all the people who are on your line by default and how close they are to you. How open are you with them? If someone is on your line by default, it is very important, I think, very healthy, to recognize by choice where you wish them to be on your line, and to therefore, on the basis of that, work out how much of yourself you're going to share and give to them. Because I know in my world, I'll speak of my own personal experiences because I think that's helpful. I used to welcome everybody in. I'd be wide open, and everybody would be welcomed really close to me immediately. And then I would experience disappointment because some of those people didn't necessarily treat me very well. And yet I had welcomed them in, and I was wide open and vulnerable to them and to their actions. Had I developed discernment, had I used discernment, had I taken time to welcome them in and have them on my line, but work out where they needed to be and take time to decide whether I wished to open those doors and bring them close to me or not, because that is my choice, my right, my entitlement, I would not have then experienced disappointment as something that would be so huge. Disappointment in reality as an emotion is an incredibly valuable tool. If we are wide open and we've invited everybody into our life in a way that is very close, and we are sharing too much of ourselves, then we are vulnerable to them and we are vulnerable to our own disappointment. Actually, if someone has been welcomed onto my line and they're quite a fair way down it, then when I experience disappointment, I simply move them a bit further down the line, or indeed I remove them from the line altogether. Disappointment has suddenly become a tool of empowerment. It's allowing me to evaluate what's going on and to know that whatever's taking place, if it's disappointing, it's good information. So disappointment as an emotion, when we use it within this grading tool of discernment, disappointment becomes an emotion that is serving us rather than an emotion that is derailing us. So this is what I call a grading tool. It's about grading people on that line, looking at where they are, where have you placed them. People will fluctuate on that line. They won't necessarily be in the same place on that line. It will depend on their actions, what they're doing, what parts they play in your life at this moment in time. Likewise, with our family members. Most of us have all our family members here by default. That's wonderful if you really, really hit it off with every member of your family. But what if some members of your family live in a manner that is completely incongruent with who you are? As adults, we develop our own pathway, our own values, and we need to honor these values. If you have a member of your family who lives in a way that is totally adverse, totally opposite to the values that you hold dear, by all means keep them on your line, but move them further away. Why would you be wide open to somebody who is in your world by default, when in reality the way they live their life might actually mean that if you met them in friendship or as a neighbour, you wouldn't really have them in your life at all, beyond some sort of distant acquaintance. We have the right to make these choices. And these are the choices that keep us healthy. When our boundaries are intact, when our discernment is intact, we are demonstrating by example to others, and we are giving permission to others to do the same. If you ever need to remove someone from your line altogether, you can close that door, you can send them love, and you can walk away. You don't have to harbour resentment at their actions and maybe the things that they did to hurt or disappoint you. Just recognise that you have the right to exert your choice and to make your decisions, to keep them on your line as an acquaintance or to remove them from your line altogether if necessary. If you carry resentment, or you go back again and again and again hoping that someone else will change, you are simply opening yourself up to disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. But you are doing that to yourself. They are not making you do that. You don't have to invite people into your life. You have that choice. And learning to become discerning is a really important tool of life. It's a life skill. And I personally find this grading tool, this drawing a line between me and the corner of the room or the other side of the room, placing everyone on it, and really giving myself a bit of a recce on who's there, what I'm sharing with each of them, what are my choices, what do I need to do. It doesn't mean I'm going to treat any of them with disrespect, but it does mean I'm going to treat myself with respect. And I'm going to honour my own values and my own pathway. And I'm going to uphold that self-respect and set that example through my actions.